Hey you guys, it's Peter, and I'm back. Of course I'm back. I'm not going anywhere. Peace. Peekaboo. I see you because I'm YouTube famous now. Available in the fall of 2022. The album, the concert, the tour. Dad, Ev. I took my love and I took it down. Climbed a mountain and I turned around. Of course I'm gonna sing Landslide when I go on tour. Rock on, gold dust. Rhiannon rings like a bell through the night, and wouldn't you love to love her? A little Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac mega mix for this Friday afternoon, early evening. Listen, how are you guys? Listen, Linda, how are you guys doing today? Let me kick off my shoes, my little plastic Birkenstock sandals here so I can get comfortable. I was sitting around today after my husband was kind enough to run me on a bunch of errands that I needed to do. And I got home and I was kind of thinking about not filming any videos at all. And then I was unloading my groceries from Fresh Time into my refrigerator and I was like, why don't I do a grocery haul? People seem to like these grocery hauls over here, so I did a grocery haul. And then I had purchased crumble cookies. I was gonna do the review tomorrow, but I did it today. And so then I was like, I don't wanna stop filming videos. So I was gonna film my vlog, but then I was like, you know what? I did this Q&A the other day for my 50th birthday, and I got so many questions. I mean, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions, and I only got to like the 30th question. So I was like, why don't I go to the questions, go to the very last question, and then work my way back up, and then get somewhere to the middle, and try to get through more of the questions, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna do that today. I am sipping on my coffee that I made in my beautiful purple tumbler that I have right here, my Starbucks cup. And it has a little bit of brown sugar creamer in it, a stevia, and Starbucks iced coffee in it. So anyway, before I do, I want to ask you guys a question, okay? And it's kind of a silly question, but if you watch any of my channels, you know that I have mentioned my grandma many times. I talked about her in my last Q&A that I did, and how I found out after my mom had passed away, I had found out from my dad that my grandma had gone to prison, and we believe not once but twice. And she went to prison for embezzlement. I don't really know many more details than that. In fact, everybody kind of surrounding the story acted like they didn't know a lot of the details. And I think really in retrospect, it was kind of to protect my cousin Caroline and I from really looking badly on our grandma, which we wouldn't do anyway, right? Like, we don't condone all that, like embezzlement, obviously. But at the same time, we have fond memories of our grandma. But there's also all of these holes and gaps in the story of our mothers, and our mothers being in foster care when they were growing up, which, if you hear it from Caroline's mom, my aunt, it was one story, and if you hear it from my mom, it was completely a different story. And the only thing that we really know at this point is that their dad died when my mom was 4 and my aunt was 6, and at one point they were in foster care, and that my grandma worked very, very hard for the girls, and then she ended up going to prison for embezzlement. That's really all we know, okay? And then flash forward to Caroline and I being little kids, and we remember like staying at our grandma's house overnight and whatever, and we have very fond memories of all of that, and Christmases and Thanksgivings and stuff like that with our grandma. Our grandma was very, very involved in our childhood, so we didn't know any of this. But I've kind of talked about it in videos and even kind of made little jokes about it from here and there. And the truth be told is I have really done personal investigations trying to find out the details of all of this. And Caroline and I even at one time talked about doing like a series of videos on my channel trying to find out more details about this, going to Department of Corrections and foster care and trying to find out what really happened with all of this. Because it would be very interesting to look at how we were raised in regards to two mothers that had gone through this, if that makes sense. And we believe that it did affect the way that we were raised and our parents' mindset and things like that. But we've kind of come to a brick wall because there's not really anything else that we can find out at this point because it was so long ago. But anyway, I received several comments on my vlog and on my Q&A saying, I didn't know this about Peter's grandma. What is this about this? And blah, 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 whatever. And so I was thinking about it, and I thought, would you guys be interested in, and I know a lot of people are like, have Caroline in videos, and I just did a video on my review channel with Caroline and I reviewing the refreshers at Starbucks. Would you guys be interested in Caroline and I sitting down and talking and doing a whole entire video completely around this whole storyline of our grandma and what we know? I mean, there's been things that we have found out that I haven't shared on video. So if you guys would like to see that video with my cousin Caroline, let me know in the comment section below, because I think that that would be something that for us would be kind of a neat memory to have in retrospect. And also, if you would like to know more, I mean, we kind of wanted to go and do this whole thing. Caroline was like, we should do a podcast about this on finding the history of grandma. So we've kind of thrown that idea around as well too. So if that's anything that's interesting to you, let me know in the comment section below. Okay, so let's get into these questions. I already have the last ones pulled up. I should look and see what my next picture is. Oh, it's Jeffree Star's palette. Okay, palette collection. So I didn't look at these questions, but let me get into them. Your top 5 crumble cookie flavors. Oh God, I don't even know. Well, I just reviewed the lime coconut cookie from this week's crumble cookies, and I would have to say that that's probably one of my favorite I've ever reviewed. I do love this, just their plain sugar cookie. I think it's fantastic as well. The thing about the crumble cookies is they're either like so sweet and just a mound of cookie and cream cheese frosting and all kinds of other stuff that they're so delicious that it's like an entire dessert. I never sit down. I think people have this assumption that like when I review food that like I sit down and I eat like this whole box of cookies, or you know, I'm drinking like this whole sugary frappuccino, and that's just not the reality. Like usually I take a couple sips of it and then I give it to somebody if they want it, or you know, like a friend or somebody like that. Or like the cookies sit on our kitchen counter for like a whole week, and Alex and I kind of like bite here and there at them, and you know, sometimes end up giving them to other people, or they end up, you know, being thrown out or whatnot. So it's not like I'm sitting here and I'm like eating all of this tons and tons of food, and I think that's kind of a misconception about my review channel a little bit. But I don't know, like I can't remember off the top of my head all of the ones that I've reviewed. I really liked, I think, the one that I remember that was really memorable to me is the pancake one that they had syrup, a little package of syrup that came with it. That was really cool. Yellow Jackets versus the Wilds. Well, I haven't seen the Wilds, and I just finished Yellow Jackets. It has to have a season. Well, it did get renewed for a season 2. It is so well done, you guys. It is so good. Juliette Lewis is good in it, and I really like Melanie Linsky. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but she was great in it too. Really well done. I can't, I don't know what this person's name is, but they said, no question, if nobody's told you today, I love you, so thank you for you. Oh, that means so much to me, thank you. Let's see, okay, now I'm going to the next page of questions. Let's see what is on here. What is your favorite cookie flavor of all time? That's interesting. My favorite cookie flavor of all time, not including Mrs. Fields, I was going to say. Not including crumble cookies. My favorite cookie type of all time is usually like a white chocolate chip macadamia cookie. And I used to get them from Subway back in the day, and those were my favorites. Okay. Let's see. Advice for someone who got sober outside of a 12-step program 5.5 years ago and is looking to build a sober community. Well, you know, I don't know, because I can only speak from my experience, strength, and hope. I think there are many different ways for people to get sober today. And, you know, a 12-step program is not the only one. I think it's difficult. I think when you're a sober person and you live in this world, I have friends of mine, like my friend Melissa. After college, she just decided that she wasn't going to drink anymore. She was like, it's just not for me. I don't want to drink. I drank a lot in college, and this just isn't for me anymore. So when we go out to dinner and stuff, she always just has like a Coke or a Pepsi. But she wouldn't consider herself an alcoholic either. I think there's a lot of people that are sober, but like in this world that I live in, I feel like this is going to sound crazy at 27 years and at 27 and a half years sober, but I meet people all the time, you know, just like through my husband or other people that really have no idea of what it means to be sober. I have met everybody that I know, and you know, if you don't want to go to a 12-step program, that's like your business. But just to go to meetings, like you can go to meetings and it's your business whether or not you work a program or get a sponsor or whatever, but you could go to meetings just to meet sober people. That might be one thing that you do, you know? I mean, I know lots of people in recovery. I mean, I don't know the circumstances of their recovery, but I know a lot of people that just go to meetings and they don't work steps and they don't have a sponsor and whatever. I don't know how happy they are or how sober they are or whatever, but, you know, like they seem to have other friends that are in recovery. So you could maybe try to go to some open meetings even where you don't have to be an alcoholic or an addict to go to it. But I think that's on, you know, anybody else's business. I don't know where to meet sober people today that, I mean, put an ad in the newspaper, but like I'm looking for sober friends. I don't know what you'd get, you know? I mean, I don't really know because like everybody that I've met through 12-step programs or through friends that I've had that are in recovery as well. So maybe if you had a friend of yours that was in recovery and reach out to them and say, I want to meet some other people. When I met my friend Tanya, she, you know, introduced me to her friend group, and that was really where I started having fellowship within a 12-step program, and it changed my life. Like, I was very, very lonely in recovery until then because I had gotten rid of all of my friends that used, or they had gotten rid of me, and so I wasn't hanging out with them, and I was going to meetings, and the average age of the person in recovery at that time was 40 to 50, and I was 22 and a half, 23, and it was hard, you know? And so when I met my friend Tanya, she introduced me to her friend group. I started like going out to dinner or going on vacations with them and things like that, and it like profoundly changed my life. And the thing that people don't really understand, like, why do you have to have people in recovery? It's like, there's no greater power than one addict looking at another addict and sharing their stories, because you don't have to explain where you've been because that other person knows. They've been there, right? So it's kind of like meeting somebody on common ground, and I don't know, it's the fellowship piece to me, the friendships that I've had in recovery are vital to my life and to my sobriety today. So I wish you all the best, I really do. Let's see. What's the biggest lesson you have learned on YouTube? Oh, wow. I'm going to keep this positive. The greatest lesson that I have learned on YouTube is that I am constantly surprised by the kindness and compassion of strangers, in all honesty. When I started this 6 years ago, 6 years in September will be the 6-year anniversary of my drama channel. I started my booktube channel 6 years ago in May 11th, and if you had told me that I would receive emails, DMs, the Vloggerino group from the vlog alone is just like unbelievable. The kindness and compassion that people have reached out to me and the things that they've said, and, you know, getting messages from people saying like, you sharing your recovery story has inspired me to get sober, or has helped me with a family member or whatever. Like, you know, or like just people saying like, you and your husband being in videos has allowed me to love my gay child more, you know, easier. And, you know, I had a really hard time with acceptance until then. And, you know, you talking about family members having their own coming out process has really helped me as well. You know, just like all of these kinds of things that I never imagined in a million years. I really didn't. Well, first of all, I never imagined that I'd have any kind of YouTube channel where there would be thousands of people that would be watching. I mean, to me, that's still crazy. Like, I don't really get it. And like, friends of mine are like, Peter, you suffer from such bad social anxiety, like, how do you make videos? And I'm like, well, I only really feel like I'm talking to one or two people. Like, I don't ever, like, if I see a number that's like, I think I looked at a video on my drama channel the other day and it was like 40,000 views. I think it was like a Trisha Paytas video or something like that. And I was like, God, that video, like, got a lot of views, you know, for recently for me. That's crazy to think, you know? And then to have people just reach out to me and be vulnerable enough to share their story with me, or parts of their story, or just the absolute kindness of strangers that I have seen and received has just been unbelievable to me. And I think that's the greatest lesson that I have learned on YouTube, is to never give up on people, to never give up on humanity, and to never give up on having hope that we can sit, like, if I look for the negative, this is one of the reasons, and I've done this myself at times on YouTube, okay, I really have, and on social media. This is why it's so frustrating to me, like with people like Jaclyn Hill, that only focus on the negative comments. If I want to focus on the negative comments, trust me, they're there to find, okay? If you put me in a room of 100 people and 99 people are saying really nice things to me, and one person is saying something nasty, and I want to focus on that one nasty person. That's my doing, right? And as a person in recovery, like as having like past addiction issues and also being bullied, I used to look for that one person's approval. I don't anymore. There's always going to be people out there that don't like you, and they don't have to. You know, there's people that I don't really like, and I don't have to. You know what I mean? I don't go out of my way to say mean and cruel things to those people, you know, but you don't have to like people. But acknowledge the people that do love you and like you, you know? What a gift that is. What a gift it is that there are people out there that I will never meet in my lifetime that literally turn on YouTube and hear me talk about the most random things that are so kind and loving. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? And this is why I never get through these Q&As, because I focus on one question too long. Let's see. Favorite birthday cake of all time. Well, I used to always, as a kid, like my mom would say, you can get whatever kind of birthday cake you want to get, and I would always get an ice cream cake, and I used to always get bubblegum ice cream when I was like, I think for like 3 or 4 years in a row I got that. So that was probably my favorite cake of all times. Peter, what advice can you give on being single, living alone, and no friends in your 20s? That's tough, I think, you know, and in my 20s at times I had periods where I either just had a boyfriend and my roommate and that was it, or because I was working so much and I was in graduate school and going to meetings and whatever, and but that was in my early 20s. I think I would really like, I know it's tough, but one of the things I wish I would have done earlier in my life is got involved in stuff, whether that was, you know, local networking deals or a book club or, you know, playing volleyball or a bowling league or something. Like, I wish I would have gotten involved. I even wish kind of like in high school, looking back in retrospect, that I would have gotten involved a little bit more. I think it would have made my time in high school easier for me, and I think I would have met people that I normally wouldn't have met, you know? You know, we say this in 12-step programs, that we're people that wouldn't normally meet. And I think that had I allowed myself to get involved, I would have met people that enjoyed the same things that I did. And I wish in my life I would do that, you know? I'm really looking right now at getting involved in dog rescues and senior dog things, because that's something I'm really, really passionate about. And so I've been thinking a lot about going into my 50s. What is something that I want to dedicate my life to going forward? And that's something that I feel really strongly about. You know, I don't know, so I got to look at ways to do that. But I would say my advice would be, no matter how tough it is, no matter how hard it is to walk through that door the first time, sign up for something. Whatever it is that you love, find out something in your area that has that and go do it. Okay, let's see. A lot of traveling questions. Okay, I have mentioned this and I talked about this in a YouTube video that I did, but I'm just going to like talk about this briefly in here because I got a lot of questions about this. Are you scared of the current SCOTUS makeup? How does it feel for you? Yeah, I'm absolutely scared. I'm scared of the times that we live in. I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm confused. You know, it feels like we're going 50 years back. I addressed my other Q&A about my husband and I trying to prepare for the future because we don't know what that's going to look like. It is really scary. It's very scary. And I think the thing, you know, I talked about this in my previous video, but it's like, or maybe I talked about it in the vlog. These changes that have occurred in our country were not like changes that happened overnight, okay? We're talking about years upon years upon years, okay, of people working on the front lines, paperwork, staying up till 12 and 2 o'clock in the morning, canvassing areas, activists, okay, to make changes in this country that are reversed like that. I just, it's baffling to me. It's baffling, and especially having grown up with a mother, a woman that was an activist, that so much believed in women's rights and so much believed in, you know, like the rights of all people, and was such an activist and marched and worked and, you know, believed so much in the change in this country. I think it's really, really hard for me to look at what's going on and just be like, well, it's just not that big of a deal. Like, it's just something that people are tweeting out. It's a huge deal. It's an absolutely huge deal, and we're in very, very scary times. And I feel like it's this snowball that is starting to go, and like, I don't even think at this point, this is what's the scariest to me. I don't really even think at this point that we have the ability to conceptualize where this could go. And that's what's scary to me, is where we could be 5 or 10, for everybody, for no matter what side you stand on or what you believe in, where we could be 10 years down the road. You know, like, that's what's really scary to me. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. If you were able to choose 3 superpowers, what would they be? Oh God, I don't know. I think to fly, number 1. I've always wanted to be able to fly. I used to read those James Patterson Maximum Ride books. Do you guys know what, like years ago, do you know what I'm talking about? Where all the kids could fly and they had been like DNA switched or whatever, and this like, I don't know. But anyway, it was like these books, but I've always wanted to fly. I'd kind of like to fly like this and not have to have wings and stuff, you know. I think to be able to be invisible and to read people's minds, definitely. Trust, if I could read people's minds, oh my God, I'd be like, Jeffree Star, and then I'd be like, and I'd get in a video and I'd be like, my name would be, people ask me all the time, what would your 7th channel be? Mind Reader of the World, and I'd be like, today when I was reading Jeffree Star's mind, let me tell you what he was thinking, and I would get right on there and I would say it. Oh my God, I would. Listen, there's no 2-state consent about mind reading, okay? You don't have to do that for wiretapping and all that kind of stuff. You could just mind read if you want and say whatever you want to say. I truly would do all that. Okay, and I kind of would want to know. Dream vacation, money is unlimited. You know, I don't know. I follow this Instagram account called Beautiful Destinations, and they're always staying in some place like the Maldives or Bali. And it's always like one of those, you know, hotel rooms that's like super sweet. Do you know what I'm talking about? I mean, it's massive, and then it has like a pool, and the pool's like an infinity pool looking over the ocean, and then there's like a guy or a woman, and they're running down this deck, and then they dive into like the 3 feet water that's right there. Like, that's where I want to go for like a month or 6 weeks. Unlimited, with room service. Room service is very important. If you could be any animal for a day, what would you be? I'd be Boo Radley, my dog. I would, though. I would be Boo Radley all day long, and then I would want to know what, because I call him Little Dog now. I would want to know what Little Dog was thinking. Because I sometimes wonder, I'm like, I did a whole video on my Peter Does Stuff channel about this, but I'm like, what does Little Dog think about all day long? Like, I was just inside uploading these videos, and my husband Alex is laying in bed, and I said, what's the Little Dog doing? He goes, he's like digging in his blanket. And I go, digging in his blanket? He goes, yeah. I go, getting in like his little, because he like digs and digs and digs, and then he turns around like 50 times, and then he like sits down, because I think that that's like what they do, you know, in the wild, probably. Okay, let's see. Do you use reaffirming thoughts or mantras? So what are some you're currently using? Well, the Serenity Prayer, definitely. This is kind of a funny story. I don't know if I've ever shared it on here or not. I think on my vlog I probably have. But when I got sober, I knocked on wood a lot. And so when I would be sitting in group therapy, if it wouldn't be like me, it would be like if somebody else said something, right? Like if somebody said, I'm never going to get sober, like I would knock on wood. And so it took like a day or two for my counselor to figure it out. Like she would see me and she would kind of like look, like, because we had these wood chairs in there. And so she said to me one day, are you knocking on wood? And I go, yeah. And so she suggested to me that instead of knocking on wood, I say the Serenity Prayer. You know, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I said that, I don't even know how many times, 20 or 30 times a day, probably, maybe even more. So that's been something I've always had with me. You know, I think in the last couple years, I've really tried to do mantras of, like, at the end of the day when I do my prayers and meditations, I always say tomorrow's going to be a really good day. It's going to be a really positive day. It's going to be a happy day. Good things are going to come my way. I am a big believer in manifesting positive things. That doesn't necessarily mean that tragedy and hard times aren't going to happen to us. I think our perception of those times and the way that we respond to them, and are we open to the lesson, the greater lesson, really has a lot to do with how we move forward in life. You know, like, do I want to sit here and complain and look at my life and be like, woe is me? Or do I want to look at it and say, wow, this happened to me. Now, how am I going to respond to that? You know, it's like, I love Oprah's definition of forgiveness. She says that forgiveness is looking at the past and accepting what happened in the past. Not accepting that what happened was okay, but saying it happened. And I can't change that. And then asking yourself, now what am I going to do with it to move forward so I'm not a hostage to my past anymore? That is powerful. There are things from my childhood, from growing up to whatever, that I have held myself hostage to for a very, very long time and not allowed myself to move on from. You know, when you talk about allowing people to rent space in your head and that whole idea of being resentful, and you know, I have learned in recovery that like resentment is not a luxury, you know, that peace and serenity are not a luxury, and like resentments are unfulfilled expectations, and the number one offender is resentment. So if I want to live a peaceful and serene life, I got to get rid of that resentment, you know. Well, most times resentment for me is bound in the lack of forgiveness and the inability to move on from the things that have happened in my past. And so if I want to live the best life that I have going forward, I got to look at those things and say, why am I staying so stuck in that? You know, how am I benefiting from that? Because we do benefit from that, whether it's from having a victim mentality or being like, if you had my life, then you'd feel the same way or whatever, you know. But really what ultimately happens is we're the ones that aren't able to live the best life possible as a result of that. So, all right, let's see. Favorite candles. Oh, I did this one the other day. I guess I did get to some of these. Next porch decor plan idea. Well, that will be Halloween. So I don't know. Well, it'd be fall Halloween. So it'd be like mums and things like that. I love mums in the fall. Okay. Favorite fashion designer. Well, like as a person or as like a designer? I love following Zach Posen in his life, and I love as a designer. I think his work is just absolutely beautiful. But favorite designer as a person, I would say, is Betsy Johnson. She actually was just on RuPaul's Drag Race. Did I already talk about this in my last Q&A? She was just on, yeah, I think I did, because somebody asked me if it was Ralph Lauren, because I wear that. I don't consider, like, you know, off-the-rack t-shirts fashion design, really. I mean, there's a lot of fashion designers. So, a little unknown fact, if you didn't know this about me and you haven't kept up with me through the years, when I was in high school, I made a lot of clothes for my friends. I can sew on a sewing machine, I can do patterns. I really wanted to be a fashion designer, and I wanted to go to like Pratt or Parsons or Rhode Island School of Design or FIT in New York City. And I really was just kind of too afraid to leave Indianapolis, in all honesty. Like I told you, I've horrible social anxiety. I was afraid to grow up, and I didn't really know I couldn't imagine myself being in a big city like that. And but I like read all the magazines growing up, you know, like Vogue and all of them back in the day, and kept up with the fashion. That was what I loved. And to this day, I know I'm just black t-shirt and a trucker hat, but like I keep up with all of the fashion designers and what's going on and all that kind of stuff. I have to say, one of the things that I really like right now is a lot of the crossover brands. I think it's very interesting, you know, like what they're doing with like Versace and Fendi and all these different things. And Gucci just did Adidas crossover thing. And, you know, Louis Vuitton has done Supreme back in the day. I think it's interesting, this whole like sportswear meets fashion kind of idea. And I will tell you the other thing that's interesting about that is, I know many of you saw The House of Gucci. Ugh, that movie was horrible. But I read the book for a true crime book club, and the book was very interesting because it talked about the buyout of a lot of these businesses. And I don't know how much you know about this, but a lot of these houses, like Louis Vuitton and stuff, they actually own many other houses underneath them, and Gucci did as well, and does, I think, as well. So when you're looking at Prada, I mean, Prada might be owned by, I think it is owned by Gucci, and so it's not necessarily, I could be wrong about that, but I think Prada is owned by Gucci. So you're looking at fashion within the same, you know, business model. So I think that's interesting as well. Opinion, decor time frames when it's okay to start fall, Christmas, spring decor. Listen, life is short. Do what makes you happy. I mean, I know in rants, I'm like, there's Christmas decorations out and it's July or August, you know? But I'm like, hey, listen, do you. The earlier the pumpkin spice latte comes to Starbucks, the quicker we can get worn out on it. You know what I mean? It's just not that deep. I think that's just, we want to complain about those things, but I'll probably do a rant video about it, you know? What was the hardest thing about losing your mom? I just lost mine to alcoholism in April. Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. It's going to stop. Hold on a second. Okay. First of all, I want to say I'm sorry for your loss. It's to lose a parent, if you're close to them, I think. Well, even maybe not if you're close to them, but it's like so surreal. It's the weirdest feeling in the world. I think over time, what has been the hardest thing for me, and Caroline, my cousin, and I were just talking about this the other day, is that the older you get, you know, like on my mom's side, it's Caroline and I that really know our history. And even then, Caroline was raised by my aunt and uncle. I was raised by my mom and my dad. So like, there's a lot of like, there's some places that don't overlap of memories, you know? So when I lost my mom, it was like, I think the hardest thing over time has been, nobody really knows my history. Nobody knows me growing up as a kid and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard. It's harder the older you get. You know, it's like my best friend I've known for 25 years, but I had a whole life before her, you know, that she's not really that aware of it other than hearing stories about it. And those people aren't around anymore. I mean, they've either passed away or they're not in my life. So it's hard when you look back on your life and it's like, I'd love to call somebody up and like joke about these stories or have, you know, stories that I've told from that happened in my childhood or my teens or whatever, and they're just not there anymore, you know, so it's hard. I think that's the hardest thing. And I think giving my mom a hug, well, I will tell you the hardest thing at first, and for the first several years, was the phone. I think the hardest thing was not being able to pick up the phone and call my mom over random stuff, you know, like the Oscar nominations or, I don't know, just something that was going on in the world. And I don't have my mom. My mom and I, she was never, you know, my mom would always say to me, like, I'm not your best friend, I'm not your friend, I'm your mom, like, and you have friends, and I need to be your mom. And when she got sober, because I felt like I had to take care of her much of the time when she was drinking actively, but when she got sober, I was able to have an adult relationship with my mom, which was magical. But I miss that. I miss that hugging, that, you know, she was such a great hugger, and, you know, I would show up at this door, my door's right over there, that my mom used to live in this condo, and, you know, she'd be like, ah, you know, and it was just like that excitement, and I miss that, you know, and it wasn't like we always got along, like, I mean, we argued a lot, and I tell people this all the time. I mean, I'm not this, you know, it's always interesting to me, I will say this, one of the things I've gotten as I've gotten older is when somebody dies, and it's like, maybe they were troublesome or problematic, or people didn't like them or whatever. And it's like, there's this, and I'm just telling you guys how I feel about it, okay? There's this level of phoniness that occurs, that these people get sainted overnight. And it's like, all of a sudden, and it's like, I've had friends of mine that have like shown up to funerals, and I'm like, you didn't even like this person. Like, you spoke so horribly about this. And I don't say anything, right? I'm just like, hey, if you need to be here. And they're always like, isn't it so sad? And I'm like, you didn't like this person. Like, seriously, like, why are we acting like, you know, I mean, show up if you need to support people and be kind and loving. I think that's great, you know, but then zip it, like, for real, or at least take a look at, like, how you used to talk to people. But then they, you know, well, I don't really have people like this in my life today, but I've had people like this in my life where then they turn around and they keep on talking poorly about people, you know? So that's always interesting to me. And I've said about my mom, you know, like, I love my mom, but she was nuts, you know? And we would be hugging and kissing, and, well, not like kissing like that, but, you know, well, listen, we're not cousins, but kissing cousins. But anyway, no, we'd be hugging and talking, and I'd be so excited to see her. She came back for like 2 days on the earth and whatever, and I think at some point we'd probably start disagreeing or arguing about something, and then we would make up, and it would be fine again, and that was kind of how our relationship was. I mean, not every day, but, you know, and I'm not phony about that. Like, you know, I know my mom, she was difficult, and she struggled with mental health issues, and I didn't understand it a lot, and I didn't know what she needed from me a lot, and we would argue a lot sometimes, you know, and I'm not going to act like since she's gone that wasn't how we were, because that would be phony. I want to remember my mom how she was, and I want to respect her, and my mom was wise at times and gave me unbelievable suggestions and advice. That doesn't mean that she wasn't difficult at times, you know, but I love my mom for all of it, you know, and I think that that's important in looking at people, is remembering all of them, you know. Okay, let's see. Okay, the battery died, so I had to replace it. And I'm just going to answer a few more of these. Okay, so somebody said to me, okay, now I like turn the page now. Turn the page like the song back in the day. Somebody asked me, hold on a second, would I ever do, oh, here it is. Would you ever do a meet and greet for fans or a live Q&A? I would, okay? Here's the deal. I don't think people really understand how bad my social anxiety is. If I'm somewhere and there's not like tons of people around me, and one person comes up to me, which this rarely happens, but it just happened like a week ago. Adriana, thank you for coming up to me. And she was like, oh, I love your videos. In that moment, I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. And, you know, if they want a picture, I'll get a picture with them or whatever. It means so much to me. I mean, it rarely happens, and it is really cool when it does happen. I'm like, oh my God, you know, but I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. But to like walk in somewhere where it would be like 20 people or something like that, I think that would be really overwhelming for me. I would do that because I've been asked so many times. But I don't know. And then it also kind of goes in my head, and I'm like, who am I to do a meet and greet? Like, I'm nobody, right? Like, I don't mean like I'm nobody. I mean, I feel today in my life as somebody that's worthy of love, and I'm a good person. But I'm like, I don't know. It just feels weird to me, you know, to do that. But I would. I mean, if enough people asked, I would do that. So, okay. What song or movie do you hate that everyone else loves? Well, right now, Top Gun. I feel like there has not been a person that I have met that didn't like that movie. Like, everybody that I've met, like, loves the new Top Gun Magnum. I hated it. I thought it was boring. I thought it was dumb. I was so bored of it. I was like, what are they doing to Tom Cruise? In one scene, he looked 80, and in the next scene, he looked 30. I just was so confused by it. I just didn't like it. I don't know. I mean, he looked really good when he looked really good, but when he looked really bad, he looked really bad. Almost kind of like wax figurine type, you know? And I just was, I don't know. I'm not into jets and stuff like that. I had never seen the original. I just sat there and ate my popcorn. I was so bored by that movie. And that's not a popular opinion. Okay. Let's see. A lot of these I got asked and I already addressed. Best time of year to visit Florida, definitely the spring, like March. Although I will say, when did we get the Airbnb with the pool? I think that was like in October, and there was rain. Like, we didn't go to the beach because it rained most of the days. But the weather was really nice. That was, I think October was a really good time to go. It rains a lot, but it's a really good time to go to Florida too. But I would say March, April, definitely, which is why everybody goes there for spring break. Unpopular movie opinions. Example, I don't like Goonies or Princess Bride. Well, truth be told, I've never seen Princess Bride to this day. And Goonies is one of my favorite movies to this day. You Goonies! I love that movie. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay. Favorite memory with Alex. Well, the first memory that comes to mind, okay, is that one of the first nights out with Alex, he took me with his cousin Maya to this bar here in Indianapolis, and it's called the Jazz Kitchen. And on Thursday nights, they have Latino night. And so he and his cousin entered this salsa contest, and it was packed in this place and hot, and it was just so sexy. And I remember I had this vintage Dior shirt that I got in this thrift store for like $20, and it was like this vintage polo red Dior. God, I wish it fit me so bad right now. I'm still losing weight, so we'll hope. But it was like this vintage Dior polo shirt that I gotten in this Louisville thrift store for like 20 bucks or something. And I had that on it. And so I just sat on this like booth with like some of his friends and watched them salsa dance. And they danced to this Celia Cruz song. That Tien Tubao song. I love that song. And I can't remember the whole title to it. But anyway, and I just remember looking at him and I was like, okay, Alex and his cousin are like two of the best salsa dancers I've ever seen in my entire life. And there was this old couple out there and they were like 70 and they let them win. And I was like, oh my God, they cheated you. You guys should have won. But it was really nice that they let the old couple win because they were like tapping people's shoulders and then you were done. And so it was Alex and Maya and this old couple. And I just was like, oh my God, he is the sexiest man alive. I've never seen anything like this. It just was. And he like looked at me at one point like, when I get winked at, this has always been something since I was like, I came out, like if somebody winks at me, I'm like, oh, like I'm dead inside, right? Like that like makes my heart stop. And I remember at one point he was salsa dancing and he like looked over at me and winked and I was like, oh my God. So that's like one of my favorite memories with him. Ultra Music Festival has always been great for us and I have so many memories from Ultra Music Festival. Just laying by the pool when we go on vacation. I mean, we are, like, going on vacation for us is just such great times because we always like reconnect on that. So I think the vacations would probably, any of the vacations would be the best. There was this vacation, and I talked about this in my vlog not too long ago, that Alex had to go on a work conference, and we went to Connecticut, and we stayed in this bed and breakfast. And I was not looking forward to this trip. I was like, Connecticut, bed and breakfast, like this is going to be so boring. And we went out to dinner to some of the cutest restaurants, and we had this really cute bed and breakfast, and it ended up being, I mean, I have said to him so many times, we should go back because I loved this little small town. It was so adorable. We rented a car. We drove all over. It was just such a fantastic trip, you know? I don't think, like, some of my favorite memories in life are the smallest ones, you know? Boo Radley running around in the backyard with his brothers, or, you know, driving around in a car with my best friend, or sitting on our back patio drinking our fountain pops, talking late at night, telling ghost stories, or having a you know, like a bonfire in our backyard and a bunch of us in recovery all sitting around on our phones, and we would, one of us or two of us would run and go get, you know, candy and a fountain pop at the gas station, then we'd come back, we'd order a pizza, and we'd sit out there for hours. It was so much fun. You know, watching movies with my mom, you know, Alex like putting up the screen on the back patio and us watching Disney movies a couple years ago, last summer maybe, I don't know. You know, it's all of these memories that I have that make up my life that I look back on and think to myself, what an amazing, magically amazing, fantastic life I've had. They're small memories, you know. They're not expensive memories. They're not time-consuming memories. They're small, short, simple memories. And I think that's the greatest thing I've learned in my life so far is to be open to those experiences so that you get to have those memories, you know? And honestly, and I'm, for a lot of the people out there that don't have a lot of friends or don't have a lot of family, I've had a lot of great memories by myself. One of my favorite memories right now is sitting out on this front porch late at night, binge watching TV shows. I love that. I love it so much, you know? And it makes me really, really happy. So that's one of my favorite memories. Or writing my book and the birds. Or Pee-Pee and I, you know, when he was still alive, coming out here, and I would take him out late at night and walk him all around, you know, the street and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and those were memories that I had by myself that nobody was there for. But life is beautiful. It really is. And thank you for all the questions, and I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.